Well, hey there, sweet peas. Welcome back to Friendless. I'm your host, James Avramenko, and this week I am joined by the one and only Sara Bynoe. Sara is an actor, a producer, the host of my favorite show in town, Teen Angst, as well as Say What? And on top of everything else, she's an absolute gem of a human. We discuss the universality of teen angst, the traumas of friend breakups, and the power of playing games with strangers. All this and so much more. It's time to lean back, get comfy, set your volume at a reasonable level, and enjoy my interview with the incredible Sara Bynoe here on Friendless. This week on Friendless, I have a very new friend who she is an actor. She's the host of one of my favorite shows in town that I've gotten to be a part of, and it was honestly, it has like reinvigorated my my little like long repressed actor bug inside of me of like being on stage and being validated by people. The show is the Teen Angst show at the Fox. It's fabulous. The one, the only Sara Bynoe. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. That means so much to me that you like that show so much.
It's fascinating to me because it's like not only was it like really fun obviously to be in it, you know, like who doesn't, you know, I mean, as a performer, it's like I love being looked at, right? But
Yeah.
it's like being in the audience is so beautiful, you know. And I find it I was, you know, I made a joke about it last time I was on, but also like I genuinely see it as like really powerful inner child work, you know, in that like
Yeah.
we're collectively groaning and we're all like, oh, it's so cringy, but it is also like really validating. And like I know after the first one I did in January, like I talked to my therapist about how like it was really healing. It was like you know, like to sort of like almost like give teenage James some flowers of like, you made it, kid, and you're
Yeah.
okay, and right, you know, and it's a
Yeah. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
beautiful room you've created there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Do I need to explain it? Or assuming everyone knows, everyone who's listening.
That was gonna be
Like,
kind of my follow up. I'd
oh,
really love
okay.
to hear the story of like, because you've been doing this for like
Um,
20 years now.
yeah. I
That's
started it
incredible.
in 2000. So I had the idea when I was 19.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Well, we've got some time. I'll give you the whole. I'll give you
But
the whole thing.
it's literally the point of a podcast is talk as much as you want. Yeah.
Great. Um, so I was in like my second year of college. I was in theater school in Calgary before I came to theater school in Vancouver. So much theater school. And I was on the phone with a friend, and we were, I don't know, just having like those, late 90s epic marathon conversations. And I came across this binder of poetry that my high school boyfriend had written for me.
Mm.
And I don't know if he had like shown up at one of our plays or something, but anyway, so something prompted me and I pulled it out and I read it to her and we laughed like mean evil bitches. And then I was like, I have stuff too. And then I shared that and like she had some stuff and I was like, okay, this is very funny. And my brother was getting into website design.
Mm.
And somehow this idea of like creating teenangstpoetry.com came into my head. And then I started to create
Yeah.
all these different categories like I'm alone, no one understands my pain poem, like suicidal ideation, but I call them life sucks and I want to die poetry,
Yes.
poetry about them, people
Mm-hmm.
that like caused your teen angst or
Mm-hmm.
that, never had, there were cool people that never had teen angst. Uh,
Those people are
I,
called liars.
yeah, yeah, or I don't know, emotionally secure people. I don't know.
Yeah. I've never met one of those.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, so I started like formulating this, and then in order to launch the website, I created with my brother and his like computer friend, teenangstpoetry.com. And this is before like Blogger was a thing,
Right.
before like I mean certainly WordPress, GeoCities, like they had to create the code for it.
Damn.
And it was my dream to like be able to search for every poem that had the word fuck in it, or everyone by an author, like tagging. Like this was what I was like, oh, wouldn't that be great if we could do this?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the first like Teen Angst night as sort of a launch of the website, which was I believe it was November of 2000. And I had friends that read, not, it wasn't just poetry, but the website was always poetry, and the night people could read whatever because not everyone had poetry.
Yep.
And I had one friend literally laugh so hard she peed her pants. And yeah, and I was like, oh, this is fun. And it sort of slowly kept doing it. And then I don't know why or how, if I had an amazing friend like give me a suggestion about like send out a press release and tell the media. And then like CBC Calgary was covering it. And
Mhm.
it just really blew up from there. And then the website got a lot of attention. And I was approached by American publishers. They're like, your website's really funny. We thought about a book. And then I was in Vancouver doing Studio 58 at the time. And like, doing like the main stage shows, my upper terms at theater school there, and then like
Yeah.
working on this anthology, and the show was kind of all there at the same time, and it's just
Amazing.
never stopped. It's never stopped.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
that book end up coming out?
Mhm. Yeah, 2005.
Holy shit, this is
Yeah.
incredible. I love
Yeah.
it.
I'm like, it's just back there in the cherry blossoms on my
Right.
bookshelf. Uh, yeah, I mean, it did okay. It was like 10,000 copies were printed to
Wow.
start. It was Poetry Month that it came out, April
Yeah.
2005, and then I know they printed a bit more, but like I never made money from it because that's how publishing works. I
Yeah.
also, like I do when I pay people that do Teen Angst, I also paid people that contributed. And apparently that's not like a normal thing people do.
Yeah, that's
So
always baffled me. You know,
I know.
that's always baffled my like when I see these calls for like anthologies and stuff like that, and it's like you might get an honorarium. And it's like, I'm writing your book. You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, from my perspective, that at the end of it, it was like, oh, I did a lot of work and maybe got like
That's true.
$2,000
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
it all.
It feels like the nature of not only publishing, but also especially publishing poetry. Like you gotta that's a another rung
Yeah.
down.
Well, yeah. I mean, technically, it was a humor book,
Right, right.
but I mean, I have had high school students. Like somehow it ends up in a high school library, and people are like, "I did a report on your poem," and I'm like, "That is the
Amazing.
cutest friggin' thing ever."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
It's such a legacy. It really is like, and now, here in 2024, like there's such a like power to being able to say, this has been going on for 20 years and it's, and you're seeing people now coming on stage who are writing stuff that was, they were teenagers after you started it, right?
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
just it's become this whole other
yeah,
ethos almost, right?
yeah. But I mean, that the thing that I've certainly learned from it is the universality of it, right? Like
Mhm.
I've had shows with people, in their 60s and then people in their early 20s, and you're like, it's the same shit. It's just different references.
Yes.
Yeah, and that really just like bonds us all together, and everyone finds something to laugh at, and it's great.
So that actually that leads me to something I'm curious about is you talk about the universality and what are some of the things that you've picked up on through the years that you've noticed are like reoccurring kind of
Oh,
teen tropes?
I mean, well, I mean, these are probably more reflective of my experience and what I see in other people's stuff.
Sure.
So there's that
Sure.
caveat.
Yeah.
But certainly, like one of the categories I had when I started the website was "I'm alone. No one understands my pain." And I always feel like this night is just validating that experience. Like that's my inner child word is like, no,
Yeah.
everyone feels like they were alone. No one understood their pain. Everyone feels alone in their struggle. And this event is to prove to my inner child that no,
Yep.
you may not have all gone to the same school, but there were other people that felt shitty, or you didn't realize that like this quasi popular person was feeling ostracized, or
Yeah.
in a bad relationship with her boyfriend, or
Yeah.
you know
Well, and that is such an interesting, to have that's been kind of an offshoot of this show as well, has been like when I interview people from years and years ago and realizing not that I didn't know they were people already, but it's like
yeah,
right, but it's like hearing their perspective on what was going on at different times and how
yeah,
I was so locked into my own perspective of things and then hearing what their take on that was. It's always very illuminating and I, I often have to sort of fight an almost loop of like regret of like not knowing that at the time, but then I have to remember that it's like, well, we were children, so you're right.
yeah. We were children. We had our brains were not fully formed.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
had lots going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to finish maybe your question, other tropes. I mean, the classic. I don't know if it's like just the focus shift that kids will have in their diaries, like I love Brian, 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 Brian. Chris. Oh my God, the president of the United States put a bomb on something. Anyways, it's dinner. Bye. Like, just you're
Yep.
like, what is going on? Or you're like, that's
Yep.
all I have to say about that. Anyways, my brother's a dum dum.
Right? I like the this happened a couple times in the last show of like that switch, and it's like they haven't actually said anything, but it's like to them it's so detailed, right?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
almost like they're lacking the vocabulary to get that interior world out, so they can
yeah,
just say this really basic like I like him anyway,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. I have so many feelings and I don't know what to do about it. Just feelings.
Yeah,
Distraction. Yeah.
yeah, it's
This was really
beautiful.
important. Today we went to McDonald's and we stole straws. We're so bad. Like, okay.
um so I want to, I actually want to loop around because, talking about, this is just sort of one aspect of your whole kind of your whole career and what you do.
Mhm.
And I sort of got ahead of myself in the questions, and I often like to start with a bit of an intro with a very blunt question of who who the hell are you?
Yeah, I'm not just the teen angst girl.
Exactly.
Jeez. I mean, I have been places and people are like, "Are you the teen angst girl?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm technically midlife now, but sure." I don't know. I mean, I'm still a struggling actor in Vancouver. I'm a person who loves to go out dancing. I'm obsessed with cherry blossoms and
Mhm,
all flowers.
mhm.
Yeah. So like, how far do I go back?
Well, that's just it. That's what's so fun about this question, and it often kind of seizes people, right? Because they're like,
So
it's so
so much.
simple, but at the same time, it's like go as far as you want, and what's your
Yeah.
impulse?
Yeah.
That's what I
I'm
end
a
up being very
highly
interested in.
sensitive person
Yeah.
with trust issues
Yes.
and like a mental illness called like being an actor, wanting to be on stage. I did
Yep.
not get enough attention. My name
Yeah.
means princess. My parents well, no, it wasn't my parents that told me that. Some like guy at daycare told me that. Uh,
Wait,
yeah.
Sarah or Bino?
Sarah.
Sarah.
Yeah, I don't
Sarah
know what
means
bino means.
princess.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting.
I
In
know.
what
And I'm
language?
Hebrew.
Oh,
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah,
Okay. Amazing.
yeah. At least that's
Princess
what I was
Bino.
told. Yeah. So we're like Princess Sarah. I'm like, you're redundant, but I'll take it. Um, I
Oh
don't
my god! Just seeing you in kindergarten, being like, "That's like saying jacket coat," but
know.
okay,
I was more like, oh, I knew it. Like I was just I was really into Sleeping Beauty. I mean, the
Mm,
most terrible old Disney movies with savior princes,
yep.
but yeah, yeah,
And so you come from Calgary,
yeah.
and what kind of yeah, we I talk about this often on the show. So you're in very very good company of like what hurt you to make you become an actor.
Yeah. What did I mean, I think, I don't know if it's what hurt me. I think it was positive reinforcement.
Hmm.
I have a memory of learning to tie my shoes. Well, and that my mom still does this. We were, so I was learning to tie my shoes, and she'd go like, "What do you do?" And you go, "Ta-da!" And then they would applaud. Yeah. Even a couple Christmases ago, I was with my mom. We were making a puzzle, and you put the piece in, and she's like, "You have to say ta-da," and then they would applaud. And I was like, "Right, right, ta-da!" So yeah, it wasn't hurt. Positive reinforcement,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
being a uh, empathic,
Mhm,
emotional person, being like, I need to do something with all these feelings.
mhm.
I think I was just always drawn to it. That
I
and a little bit of writing and art. Like it was good. I had expressions that needed to
Yeah.
come out.
Um, I read somewhere last year that I was talking about. Now, this is not me diagnosing you in any way, shape,
Oh
or form.
yes, that it is. Yeah.
But it's for me personally, because I'm on the spectrum. I'm ADHD, autistic, and it was talking about how very often neurodivergent people will gravitate, especially to theater,
Mm.
because there's rules and there's lines, so you know exactly what to say and who to say it to, and you get to practice. There's repetition involved, so there's like lots of these kind of like underlying qualities that you don't realize. It's like were you a theater kid or are you just undiagnosed autistic, you know?
Yeah, I've actually thought about this a lot lately, and no, so my brother has self-diagnosed and is
Mhm.
like pretty sure he is. But we're very like I'm like, is autisticness and like is the spectrum because I'm more on the highly sensitive thing, but is it also
Sure.
like that because my dad was sometimes volatile when I
Yep.
was younger and it was like, oh, dad's upset. Don't, be careful to read emotions. So there's
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of that. But then,
Or like hypervigilance.
yeah, but then I've also
Yep.
had like therapists be like, no, like during early COVID lockdowns, like your life was fine, but you were like, the world is fucked up and I am really anxious
Mm.
about it. And you're like, I think like you are, she's like, not to be like woo woo, but like you're kind of one of those empathic people. So
Yeah.
that I'm still not sure. I think I'm more yeah, I don't in the spectrum of neurotypicalness, I feel I'm more typical, but more on the like crybaby,
Yeah.
sensitive to energies. If I want to get
Sure.
like my mom was a little woo woo, so
I love it. Lean
if
into
that
it.
if the woo woo ness gets into part of it,
Mhm.
perhaps
I'm neuro woo woo, you
that's
know? There you go, right?
it.
Yeah,
Maybe that's
yeah.
what I am.
I love
I'm
it. I love it.
yeah. I mean, certainly, like the TikTok algorithm is like ADHD, and like, you're just judging me because I've been on here for too long. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, there's also, I think that there is a misconception of like, because there's so many overlaps, when it comes to psychology and all these things, like they don't really know.
I got
It's all
theories.
like yeah, exactly. And like, obviously there's lots rooted in science, but there's also lots rooted in observation and like the whole, I always get the name wrong, but like the DSM or DSMR or whatever it is, it was basically written in the back room of like a hotel conference by like just like six guys in the
Oh yeah.
50s, so it's like
Well, yeah, it's all based on like old white men. Like,
exactly.
do you act like an old white man? No, I really don't.
Exactly.
I really
Exactly.
don't.
Well, you must be, hysterical or something,
Yeah.
right? And the overlaps of like how symptoms show up to like between like, you know, empath, autism, neurodivergence in general, ADHD,
Hmm.
trauma, all these different
Hmm.
things, right? Like it really becomes quite a muck of like unpacking what's real, what's perceived, where does the trauma end and the personality begin,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. People are different. I think the thing
Yeah.
that like when I think about like autism and like the way my family is that, well, how do I word this? There was a really horrible thing that happened with my grandmother basically disowned me when I was 18. And it was
Hmm.
like the difference between me and my brother was that I took it so personally. And
Yeah.
my brother was like, "That's weird. She's fucked up," which is maybe more healthy, but like
Yeah.
things like never like someone's anger never I mean that I know. And I think
Hmm.
probably like if when I like have deep conversations with my brother, like there probably was a lot of anxiety that like he just like kept it in and was like walled.
Yeah.
Whereas I was like, must express immediately, like,
Yeah.
why? What? So, anyways, fucked up families.
Yeah. No, I was just talking about this with somebody the other day about exactly that kind of like, because I'm with you. I'm somebody who's like, something feels, I have to say that feel, like I've got to express it right away, whether it's like even really real or not. It's like I have to verbally process it out, and I watch other people have the capacity to like take something in and like not react to it and then be able to sort of like put it away and continue with their day, and I'm just like, that's a superpower to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it took like cognitive behavioral therapy,
Mhm.
a little bit of medication to be like, oh, right. I don't have to go down this neural pathway.
Yeah.
I could choose to respond another way.
Yep. The whole central exploration behind this show is this question of friendship. Recent weeks, I've had a new. This is something I'm dancing around. I'm not really sure how to talk about it in public just yet, so I'm still finding the proper words. I had a psych evaluation. I got the results of a psych evaluation. I got diagnosed with some things, and it's really reframed the core of what I've been exploring in this show of like connection and understanding people
Mm,
and not being able to understand people at times. And um, the real basic question is, what is a friend? And
mm.
it's such a fascinating question to me because again, it's so simple and yet it can mean something brand new to every single person. And so I really love putting that question to my guests of at at your core, um, what does it mean to be a friend?
Oh gosh. I think, yeah, such a hard, I mean, it's like I want to go to like dictionary definition and be like, that's it. Don't want to get emotionally involved in it because there are so
Yeah.
many levels of friendship,
Yes.
and for someone like you have your Facebook friends. We used to have Twitter friends. It was like, oh, just this person that I don't really know, and maybe you meet them in real life, and you're like, oh yeah, you're cool. Wish
Yeah.
we could hang out. Um, or people you went to theater school with and trauma
Mhm.
bonded. And you're like, well, we're friends for life because we trauma bonded, but like
Yeah.
I never talked to them.
Yeah.
But I mean, like like I think more about like the what makes a close friend is
Mhm.
maybe what I want to talk about more. I mean, one, it's someone that hopefully see or talk to on a regular basis,
Yeah. Yeah.
that understands my past or, at least tolerates it. So, um, yeah, like I have like just like activity buddies, and maybe I would just call them like, oh yeah, they're my activity buddy, and maybe you have enough conversations, and like they become a friend.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I feel like I could ramble on forever, but
Please
the
go
thing
for it. You
the thing
you
that I
you
was
you
like,
need to
yeah,
you need to I'm just gonna say stop stopping yourself. Like
I
just go
know.
for it.
Uh,
Like
the thing that I wrote down about this question was like, is the thing that I feel like I am always looking for, not just friendship, kindred spirits.
mhm.
Maybe because I watched too much Anne of Green Gables when I was young, but
Yeah.
like I have been very much like obsessed with like that kind of friendship and relationship. Like
Yeah.
someone that you're just like, we get each other and it's magic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And especially how they can like I'm forgetting the names of the characters, but I remember especially the girls, they had their own like they were themselves and yet they got each other too, right? They were still their
Yeah.
own personality, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? So they weren't enmeshed, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't like I do this so you must. They fought a lot, but they also understood where each other was coming from.
Yeah.
And that's a quality I think is I mean, maybe it's because it was written and not real life, but
Yeah.
how do you find someone like that? Like how do you find kindred spirits?
I don't know. I feel like, right, if I knew, I'd have more of them.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's really I remember when I lived in England and I've had a really hard time, like, connecting with people and then, like, showing up at some weird poetry dinner thing and, like, sitting next to some guy who was, like parents were Portuguese, he was, like, in South London, and we just could take the piss out of each other right away, and I was like, "Oh, are you my new best friend?" Like,
Yeah.
those moments are just, like, electric, and, like,
Yeah.
uh guy and I, like, we still randomly check in on each other and just like, what are you up to? I mean, we also have
Yeah.
theater background, so sometimes there's like that. Like you just see a spark in someone else and you're like, we get it.
Mhm.
We're on the same wavelength.
Mhm.
Yeah. Where do I find them? Oh, I mean, I had a really interesting we haven't hung out since, but I did a travel gig in December
Mhm.
with another actor here who was much younger than me. And I've done like a lot of travel gigs for acting and commercials, and you don't always get along with the people you're cast with, and you know spend
Mhm.
like 4 days in a foreign city. And uh, this guy and I like got along so well. I was like, oh,
Mm.
kindred spirits. Like, thank God. Also like you have the same sort of habits and
Yep.
interests, and we're like, oh, good travel buddies.
Hmm.
Be like, I'm always just looking for like fun. I just want to get along with people and have fun and do what I want to do with them and laugh.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think keeping it like for lack of a better word, keeping it simple like that, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that's something that I've learned is that it's like friendship doesn't have to be complicated and not every friend has to be someone who can like almost like therapize you, right?
Mm.
I think something that I've really become actually almost like too reliant on that I'm trying to really pull back from is like relying on people who are just as like trauma informed or lived trauma, or like like who frame everything around mental health. That's something that I'm kind of trying to step away from a little bit, in a way where
Mm.
it's like I have my own journey and I have my own healing that I'm doing, and I'd love to talk about it sometimes, but not everything needs framing from that, and sometimes it's nice to just go like, oh, that sucks. Anyway, do you want to go watch baseball? Like
Yeah. Yeah. I want for me, I want both.
hmm.
I wanna be like, "Can I tell you this shitty thing that happened, and can you make me feel better, and can you tell me, like give me the things that I wanna hear?" And be like, "Great, now let's go do karaoke and be ridiculous and get free drinks from those guys down the hall."
The dream, the actual dream.
S Sometimes it's happened, and it's felt so good. So, I wanna know, what you are looking for in friendship these days.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's so, like I said before, a part of it is that it's like, I think, so I think for me, I have spent almost my entire life looking for a friend that will stick around. I've always really struggled with kind of keeping friends. I'm someone who can make friends, but then one reason or another, it's usually me. We split, for any number of reasons, and so I think I'm in so many ways, and we'll kind of come to this later in some of the other questions, is like in so many ways, uh, it's what I'm learning to look for in myself rather than
Mm,
outside from other people. Because I think my instincts has been to find qualities in other people that I think I'm lacking in myself.
mm,
And so instead of relying on that outside validation, I've been really working on practicing that for myself, self validation, self love, like getting really good with being alone and getting really good like at going and doing things that I'd want to be with someone for, and just doing that alone instead. Right. So, um, yeah, it's this funny thing, like, especially with sort of the way my last year, kind of half year has played out, like, in so many ways, I'm sort of embodying the opposite of this show in a certain light
mm,
of like, I'm actually trying to really pare down who I'm vulnerable with, and I'm trying to pare down who I trust.
yeah,
I'm kind of not looking for more friends. I'm looking for deeper connections to fewer people,
yeah,
right? In terms of those qualities though, to sort of give like, it's like, it's understanding, it's patience, consistency, I think, is a big one. And that doesn't necessarily mean, I'm not somebody who like, I don't need to see someone every day to but I whatever they can offer, I'd like a consistent, even if that's just like once a month, like, but just being able to trust the regularity is something, which comes from a lot of self knowledge, right? If the because it's like, if somebody says they can talk every day but then it's burning them out and then they're building resentment, like that's a recipe for problems, right?
mm.
So I'd rather just people be really honest with their own capacities and their own, right? So yeah, I think those are the cores I'm looking for. Yeah.
It's funny, when you mentioned, you have trouble keeping friends for a
Hmm.
long time. I feel like some of my friendship issues have been because I have held on longer than probably the friendship we'd outgrown each other.
Yeah.
Or that I let people get away with shitty behavior for too long. And I
Hmm.
was like, but I've known this person for so long and no one else shares these memories with me.
Hmm.
Sometimes you're like,
It's almost
just,
like a sunk cost fallacy,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? Of like, well, I've known them for this long, so I have to hold on to them, right?
yeah.
That really, yeah, so that whole world of friend breakups is one that I dance around quite a bit. And we were saying before we started recording, it's like I lost a whole like network of people last year. And I know it's very doubtful any of them are listening, and if they are, hi, sorry, because I know they have their own perspective on it, and both are valid. We've never really had the chance to actually talk through what happened, so I don't actually know what their perspective is on these things, but I know from my side, it's like, you were saying about like friendships that kind of overstayed their welcome and things like that, right?
Mm,
And I am somebody who can really rubber band between holding on too tight and then letting go too soon, and I'm
mm,
never really sure which is the right one.
yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely been on my mind of like, when is it time, and when is it time to let go, and when is it time to fight for. And I'm really curious if you're willing to sort of share. You were sort of alluding to a story before we recorded that you might be willing to share, and I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. So I mean, this is 100% my perspective. I've tried to do a lot of work to try to figure out what the other perspective was.
Hmm.
Um, I have my theories. I don't know, but ultimately, so went, I blocked a person out of my life after we went on what was supposed to be a 25th friend anniversary, at least from
Hmm.
my perspective. Um, can feel like my face getting hot, even anyways.
Yeah.
So we went to we went down to the Caribbean because this person lives out east, and well, so she lives out east, and there were little hints that maybe I was, turning a blind eye to, things like let's meet in a neutral location. Um, was a bit of a like, yeah, why did she want it to be in a neutral location? So we went down, stayed in an all inclusive resort, and the vibes were just a little weird. And I was so in this like, I am trying to have a 25th friend anniversary with someone. Let's have a great time together. And it turned out that she had wanted this opportunity to have like a conversation to, well, it was two things. One, like reevaluate our friendship. And she
Hmm.
had like lists of what kind of like terms of what the friendship should be.
Sure.
And I mean, like this person like lives in another, city, well far away from me. Like, we'd started to talk into like texting and talking every now and then, and maybe seeing each other once a year.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So the other thing was that she shared with me that she had been angry at me from something that had happened at a big event 3 years prior, and
Hmm.
had never expressed this um, anger with me.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's funny. I'm talking about now, and the whole thing blindsided me completely. And a lot of it was that she was like, "My friends out there think you're a garbage person.
Oh, Jesus.
Um, yeah." I think I have blocked out a bit of this. I just
Yeah.
have the physical feeling of what it felt like in my body because the whole weekend that we were away, I was in a state of shock. But I do very clearly remember one moment because I was going through like a depression at this point, and she had said, if you're ever thinking about killing yourself, you should do it.
Whoa.
That's what I heard. Um, when I brought that up with her in an email after the fact, um, she said something to the effect of, I would never say that because I would never say that.
Hmm.
Um, and the way that it was handled was not like, oh my God, if that's what you heard, you completely misunderstood me, which
Yeah.
maybe from there we could have evolve something. And so based on that reaction to what I had experienced, um,
There was like defense, and there was no accountability, kind of.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it just the whole like I'm vibrating now.
Yeah.
The whole experience was really fucked up. And I
Yeah.
think because I was in this mental state of like trying to have a good time and salvage this weekend that I spent thousands of dollars on and was not in a
Mhm.
great financial state at that point, to be in this neutral location instead of like going to her place or my place or meeting at a friend's cabin or something.
Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, the whole thing blindsided me completely. I was in, I mean, shock. Uh,
Yeah.
remember processing it with my therapist, and she was like, "I'm sorry, this is the most horrible thing I've ever heard of."
Yeah.
I'm like, right? This is
Yeah.
really fucked up. Um, so it's definitely like I just went on a trip with one of my other really good friends, and I had to have a conversation with her in advance. I'm like, I know that you are not gonna do what this person did to me, but I need to acknowledge that this is the now trauma I have
It's
when
in
it
your
comes to
body. Yeah.
traveling with a friend, that I'm
Mhm.
gonna be like ambushed about something
Yeah.
in a way like you couldn't, if you were angry at me for the last however many years, could you tell me in advance
Yeah.
before before I drop a lot of money?
Yeah. Good job.
Um,
Like really good job to like vocalize that,
yeah,
right? Like cuz that's scary. That's scary
yeah.
to like it's scary to say it's scary to say, "Hey, I'm scared," right? Like and so like I just want to say like good job. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I remember when this friendiversary friend uh did like drop like this, like I've been angry at you for 3 years. Like
Mhm.
the way that I
Which is already
responded
so unfair. That's already so like that's like no, 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 no,
was like,
no,
"You
you
did
know?
these horrible things," and I was like, "Okay, I have no recollection of this." I
Yeah.
mean, drinking had been involved. Drinking that I
Sure.
didn't want to do was
Yeah.
involved. Life and complications.
Yeah.
So the way that I responded, I remember her saying like, "Oh, I didn't expect you to handle this so well, and thank you for making me feel heard." And I was like, I
Mm.
don't know what ever would make you think that I wouldn't hear you, because
Yeah.
as I said earlier, so much I take personally. I'm like, this is my personal responsibility
Yeah.
for like how other people feel. So like, hence my hyper sensitivity.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was really fucked up.
Yeah.
So and I did like this person kept trying to reach out to me and be like, we need to talk, and I just was like, maybe when when I'm emotionally ready, but
Mhm.
I just had to block,
Mhm.
and I've never looked back. And it's
Good.
that thing now with like, with time going, there were things that she said on that trip that I'm like, oh yeah, that was fucked up. Like I have this other really good friend, Melissa, um, who this person had said, Melissa's not a good friend to you. She talks about you behind your back.
Mm.
And in like the most recent years, Melissa's been nothing but amazing to me. So it
Yeah.
was this whole like, I don't know what the whole thing was about. I just
Yeah.
know that it still to this day makes me feel hot and I want to cry.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's okay if you need to cry,
thank
you
you.
know? You're safe to. It's okay.
Yeah. Um yeah, it was just the most fucked up thing I'd ever experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Yeah.
sounds awful. I'm so sorry. Like that just sounds like just heinous and it's
Yeah.
like it's I have been in similar places,
Ugh.
you know, and I've heard like, you know, not one to one and by no means am I trying to like compete or compare, but it's just like
Oh, let's do it. Let's
what
compare. I have other stories. No.
well, it's that you know, it's that thing of like
Yeah.
emotional trauma and emotional abuse is really hard to explain to people who haven't been through a version themselves, you know, because it's like sometimes I think people like it feels almost too nebulous where it's like how do I describe how it changed like how it feels my heart beats or how my brain throbs or like you know it's such a strange way to what's the word like it's so strange how these events change our brains and we
Mm.
can't actually clock them until we look back later, you know.
Oh yeah.
um Really good job blocking. I heard a thing recently that I loved that I've really held on to, which is the saying that's like it's a very singular act of love to yourself and to a person who you love to allow them to experience the full extent of the consequences of their actions.
Mm.
So when someone causes such deep hurt, um, you know, the consequence is a separation, right?
Yeah.
And to not cut short your own process and your own experience and your own healing to placate their, you know, forgiveness or whatever it might be, right?
Mhm.
So um and this isn't me fishing towards this relationship, but I think more just like stepping back esoterically, like, do you believe that like stuff is done and done, or do you think that there's like if there's ever chances to like circle back after time, and if so, like what would need to happen for a circle back to work?
I'm of two minds of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Mostly, I feel like the trust has been broken,
Yeah.
and the lack of empathy for what I heard and how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that there was sort of no like immediate apology of like, oh, I fucked this up. Like I meant to try to get closer to you, and all I did was say something that pushed you further away.
Yeah.
Um, you know, that like in the moment that needed to have happened. Uh, and well, we live in different cities, so it's sort of like,
Out of sight,
okay,
out of mind.
the long distance, friendship.
Yeah.
Um, do I need another one of those? So many of my good friends live in other cities already, so it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, what would need to have, I mean, that's what something needed to have been said was in the moment,
Yeah.
or somewhat after. Um, I don't, I wish her no harm. Just that, all I wish for is that there was some understanding of like how it affected me.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure it wasn't her intention. I know there was some things that like she'd said it during the trip that was like, "Oh, I was fully expecting to like get another room." And I was like, "What the fuck is happening?" Like, you thought I was going to like blow up in this thing, and instead it was like, "I didn't mean to do any of that." And like this is completely, I had no idea that this is where our friendship was. And
Yeah.
um so maybe there's a lot of stuff that like I'm not understanding about what happened.
Yeah.
Um yeah, but ultimately nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and for me personally, I hit a point where it's like words stop mattering. Like it's like once something's been done and then it's been left to sit, like what you say afterwards doesn't doesn't register.
Mhm.
For if anything, it's like what are you gonna do? I've been talking about that a lot on recent episodes of like you know to me actions speak so much louder, and what someone does, like you could apologize 1,000 times, who gives a shit if you're gonna just go back to the same cycle,
Mhm.
unless
Mhm.
you've shown you're actually changing or have changed, right? Like and you're
Yeah.
and you're actually doing that work, because yeah, people will say whatever they want to say to get what they want in the moment, and then they'll just go back to
Yeah.
whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So I'm much more interested in actions than anything else.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
well, I'm just so sorry that happened. People can be,
Yeah.
you said
It's a lot.
something really, really, really profound there about like, you know, most people are acting on instinct, and it is important to remember that.
Mm.
Like yeah, because you said you're sure her intention wasn't this. It's just
Yeah.
just her own mode of expression, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And it's really important to clock that that is true, and also it's the whole question of intent versus impact, right? Of like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and how much do you weigh those things? And I don't think it's one or the other. I think that there's a scale to it, but like whatever your intention is, the impact still matters, right? And both have to be reconciled to truly heal past it, right?
Mhm. Yeah. I think the thing with a lot of these, for me and my friendship trauma, since this, I'm just gonna go for it all now.
Please.
Is I have by many different friends, and once again with Teen Angst, I'm sure this is universal.
Hmm.
Felt very judged by some
Mm.
friends, and like that's sort of what's caused the rift. Like with my weird lifestyle, like I had another friend at one point when we were like 27, tell me, isn't it time I got a real career?
Yeah.
And I was like going to do the Fringe Festival, and I'm like, I still don't have a real career. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
What's a real career?
yeah. It's like I have. I have savings. I don't
Mhm,
have debt. Like already, that's probably better than many people in North
mhm,
America.
mhm.
Not that it's a competition, but it's like I have some shit together. I've just chosen
Mhm,
to choose a career in the arts. And yes,
mhm.
granted, my success has come in like the last like 5, 6, 7 years for doing commercials for fucking corporate America.
Hey,
Which
whatever.
right? And then you're like, oh, it plays more than a theater contract, and theater never
Literally.
wants to audition me. So, you're like, all artists, we're taking what we can. I have my
Mhm,
shows
mhm,
and my little projects that,
mhm,
fuel me.
mhm,
But the judgment from friends and I think probably, when I do the like inner work or work with a therapist, a lot of it is coming from, it's not about me. This is my thing. It's not always about me. It's about them and them maybe feeling uncomfortable with them not pursuing their dreams or
yes.
them feeling uncomfortable with their life situation.
Yep. Yep. You're kinda getting projected on by them,
Yeah. And
like,
then I take it
yeah.
so personally and I'm like,
Yes.
I'm fucked up. And I'm like, I'm pretty good with where I'm at and loving my day-to-day life.
That's just it, and I think that there's I you're preaching to the choir on that one about just, I'll take every even slight criticism, like, just so deep in the gut, and I'll just be like, "Oh my god, you're absolutely right." Like, what a piece of shit am I, right? And it's so easy to forget that, like, the vast majority of negativity that's spoken aloud is just externalized self-loathing,
Mm,
like, it's so much of it is just projection
yeah.
of I can't remember the exact quote, but I remember years ago reading something. I think it was from like Siddhartha or something. It was like basically it was saying the thing you hate most in your enemy is the thing you hate most of yourself, right?
Mm, mm,
Like it's the reason you hate that in them is because you see it in yourself and you hate yourself, so
yeah.
like and that's what that whole work of like unconditional self-love comes from, is like if you can unconditionally love yourself, you can unconditionally love anyone, because you know yourself better than anyone. And so much of life is assumption, it's assuming what people are thinking, assuming what people are doing, but you know what you're thinking and you know what your rationale is, so you know what a piece of shit you are. So if you can
Yeah.
unconditionally love them, then you can love anyone.
Yeah. Fair. Fair.
um um yeah, god, oh, it's funny, you've put me on such a, like, it's such a tightrope walk of a topic that I desperately wanna go deeper into, but I'm also
Mhm.
terrified of it,
Yeah.
because it's really involve when it involves other people, especially people I don't speak to. It's
Yeah.
like it's such a tough, like, I don't want to be misconstrued, I don't want to be misinterpreted, I don't want to have it used.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm just what's coming up for me is like, yeah, but also like by me, like I think for me, like me not talking about this horrible thing that happened, um, it's kind of giving them still power.
Yes.
And it's like, so part of me is like, ugh, like our experience is our experience and it's valid and it's also eating away
Yes.
at us.
Hmm.
And helps other people that do know us and love us understand us.
Yeah. So that really does lead me into the next sort of portion of this exploration of connection, is a friendship, as I've started to kind of internally process it, is like the friendship is the one-on-one, and then you, out of that, you build community, right? Community, and community isn't always friends, but community to me is like kind of like safe, right?
Mm,
And I'm curious for you, again, it's one of those nebulous terms that can mean anything and everything and nothing, right? and
mm,
I'm really curious what community means to you, and what a word like that feels like for you.
yeah, it's fine. I feel like my junior high, high school essay training has like been so ingrained. I'm like, well, the definition of community is people of a place or
Yep, yep,
having a
yep.
characteristic. So what does community mean to me? I mean, I think about the communities that I am a part of, or like not a part of. Like, I live in Mount Pleasant, Vancouver. I think of like my political associated community. I think
Mhm.
of the people that I do a lot of auditions with. Like we're certainly a community, if not a partial
Totally.
group chat.
Mhm.
People with the trauma bonds from theater school, the
Mhm.
right, like the communities that I feel like I've like got like a foot in, like slightly the comedy community, slightly the theater community, like the yoga community when I go to class.
Mhm.
Um, so a lot of it's about sharing space and sharing interests, but normally sharing like I don't really have a lot of like online communities.
Mhm.
I like in-person communities, like I think like Teen Angst,
Yeah.
I hope becomes a little community for the night. We're certainly all there. Like I always sort of think of it as like a slumber party. We're all just like sharing secrets. That's the vibe
Yeah.
that I want it to have.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that's what community is, really.
Do you
Sharing
think that it's
interests,
like
time and space.
yeah, okay, so that was gonna be my follow-up about like what is it that binds us, you
Mm.
right? Like, but I guess yeah, you said interest, time, space. Those are your three community tenets.
Yeah, I guess so.
I like that a lot. I think that's a really powerful framing, and I really dig
Hmm.
it. Do you find like again, this comes back to such a interior exploration of myself, but I'm really curious, like, how do you find yourself building community? Is it
Oh,
in individuals that then conglomerate, or is it in big swaths of groups?
yeah. So I feel like this is uh, one of my burdens and one of my dreams is that I'm always wanting community and wanting to like create the community that I want and then being like pissed off that no one shows up. Um right, like I started a chapter of an event that was happening across North America called Dance Dance Party Party. I started the Vancouver chapter. And the rules of that from the original New York chapter were no booze, no boys, no judgment. And it was just like, we're going to rent a dance studio for an hour and have a dance party. Um, and it's great. Like, I handed the torch over to another den mama of that group, and like, they really have a great little community. And I'm like, why wasn't it great when I was den mama? Like, they
Yeah.
were they were all there. But also I was juggling like 7 jobs and like, who am I to,
Right.
join this community that now has time to go out for dinners and all these things. Um, yeah, because a lot of like my artwork, like Teen Angst or Sewa, this other comedy show I have where funny people read from terrible books, are kind of in this idea that like I have an idea or this game that I want to play, and I try to get people to play the game with me.
Yeah.
It's a lot of what I'm like, oh, is that starting to figure? I'm like, maybe that's just my art. Is like, let's try to bring people together to do things you want to do so that you have community. And then it's
Yeah.
like minded, right? The two people, interest,
Yeah.
time, space, sharing it with each other. Um, don't know where I was going with that. But
It's beautiful though. No, it's beautiful, and I think you tapping into recognizing that that's a strength of yours, I think is wonderful,
mm,
because it's like you're a really powerful facilitator and a really powerful like games master, like to frame it like that. I
I
think that's
mean,
an incredible skill.
yeah, they don't all work. Teen Angst is certainly the one that I'm like, is not, doesn't show any signs of dying any
Yep.
soon. And it's certainly had longevity. It's
Mhm.
great. I mean, it's just amazing how
It really is.
people contribute to be like, oh, I have something. I'm like, great. Because I've certainly exhausted my resources of it. I've been doing this way longer than I was a teenager. Um, yeah. Now I just think
There's
about all
definitely
the other events that I want to like have wanted to do for years and be like, why am I not doing these other events?
well, energy, capacity,
Yeah, right.
COVID,
Oh,
there's
certainly
lots of
COVID. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's yeah. But that was one of the most magical moments of Teen Angst was like both I've been to a couple now, and every time we come out of the show, the whole group I'm with is like, "Oh, I've got to dig up my diary," or "Oh, I used to have it, but I don't know where it is anymore. I wonder if my mom still has it." And it's like there's always this like excitement that spills out of the room that
Mm,
doesn't always happen um, at live events in
yeah,
general. There's something really connective about the way you framed these things and the way you framed like
yeah,
the sort of there's an audience participation without
yeah.
that like the terror of like being at a stand-up comedian show and them being like, "You, sir,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
roast you,"
Yeah.
and it's like, please don't,
Yeah,
right?
I guess it is. It's come and play this game with me. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Like,
think that's
I'll go play the game.
beautiful.
Let me go home. I gotta see if I got stuff for the game.
Exactly,
Yeah,
right? Exactly. And it's gentle and it's nice. It's like, no, I think it's wonderful. And I think it's really important to recognize that that is a skill, that isn't something that comes like naturally to everyone, to
yeah,
like, to give that kind of thing a shot and
yeah.
then
I mean,
keep doing it.
yeah, I have always been the party planner of
Mm.
many of my groups. Even if it's like, I got this event I want to go to. Who wants to join me?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that may even be like the secret to many friendships these days is like, you just continue to like knowing things. I mean, that's even been like how people I've dated. I'm like, oh, finally, someone wants to go do fun things with me. And then I'm like, oh, but I don't want to do all the fun things with him.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
Isn't that the trade-off, right? Where it's like, I like you a lot, but I'm gonna need some not you time
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I don't want to do that fun thing. Oh no. Well, I thought, since I knew that I was going to have some dark trauma probably come up, and I'm talking about like best things you've ever done for a friend has ever done for you, happy
Mm.
moments.
Yeah, yeah. So it's so funny. I've probably told the story before on the show somewhere, but like in a lot of ways, where my brain instantly goes to is a time that like is tied to one of the lowest points of my life, but also was like so incredibly beautiful and helpful that I'll just like to the day I die, I will love my best friend for this.
Hmm.
Um, like when I was getting divorced a couple of years ago, my best friend Mark, who was also my best man at my wedding, he just bought me a plane ticket and flew me out to Vancouver and was like, just get out of town. You're coming to stay with us. I stayed with some other friends for a couple days here. And then I went out to the island and I stayed with him for a week and we just like drank and shot the shit and cried and he taught me how to use Tinder because I had started dating my ex-wife before Tinder was popular, so he like got me set up on an account and and like just kind of showed me the ropes of what dating was like in 2022,
Oh gosh.
just gave me a week away from everything, and it was just such a beautiful gift. And him, along with my other best friend Matt, who lives on the island as well. Matt was like driving me everywhere. He picked me up from the plane and he dropped me off at the ferry, and just like
Hmm.
it's those like acts of service, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Of like just like showing up and not needing to be asked, like just being like, we're doing this, right?
yeah. Yeah. That's so
Those are the
beautiful.
things that really stick, right? Yeah. um I'm trying to think if there's another one that comes to mind that isn't tied to such shit.
Yeah.
um um Fuck, I don't know. Oh,
Yeah.
well, so this is like, yet again, I'll basically always use Matt and Mark as examples because they're just like two of my best friends, and they, a year or two ago, I don't really smoke weed all that much. I used to back in the day. I used to smoke it all the time, and then I stopped. And anytime since I've tried it, I've had like pretty intense, like not only anxiety, just like terror. I've been terrorized by it, like
Yeah.
just like.
Hmm.
And this is probably almost 2 years ago now, a year and a half, something like that. I decided I was gonna try again. I smoked a joint to myself by myself,
Oh.
and then I was drawing, and I was trying really hard to like stay on the drawing and not panic and freak out, and it wasn't working. And I text. We have a little group chat, the three of us, and I texted them, and I was like, I need help basically. and and they were like, show us your drawings. And so I did. So I like took photos of what I had drawn and I showed them, and they were so kind, and they were like, oh, those are so good. You're an incredible artist. I'm so like, I love these. And they just like unquestionably were just like giving me flowers, just gassing me up, right? And the next day I sobered up and I looked at them, and it just awful. Just the worst
Oh,
doodles. Like just like at best, it looked like a child, you know?
yeah.
And yeah, and it was just I just felt so loved of like, yeah, them just being like, we're not gonna tell him the truth. We're gonna give him, like we're just gonna love him today, right?
No, that's so sweet.
Right? Yeah, yeah. So it's stuff like that. Those are the moments that I really
Yeah,
treasure. Is
like anticipating your needs.
yes.
Right.
Oh, what a good way of putting it. Because that
Yeah.
is exactly it. I'm someone who I waffle on the idea of like it- I guess you could almost say like lying for safety or lying for support,
Ah,
because it's like they were totally lying to me that those were good drawings, but it's like it wouldn't have been helpful in the moment, right? So why would you
no,
tell,
they
right?
were very good drawings for a very stoned person.
Exactly, exactly, right? Exactly, all context, right? But it's like sometimes lying can be used for good,
Yeah, the fib.
The
Not
fib,
a
thank you.
lie.
Uh,
I'm not stealing from you or
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And that's the thing. Yeah, gentle fib. Fib is a nice way of putting it. I like that. Um, so Sarah, I'm cognizant of the time, and I know you've got other things you've got to get on with your day, but
Mhm.
I only have one kind of like wrap up question. I feel like we've only scratched the surface. I feel like there's so many different directions we could have gone with this conversation, and I find you endlessly fascinating, and I really like.
Oh,
I want to say thank you very much before I get to this like wrap up question. I really want to say like thank you so much for coming on the show.
no.
Thank you for having me on Teen Angst. Like I love the show. I have more. I'm trying to stagger my signups because I don't want to just be like coming back next month, right?
Yeah. I mean,
But
I try to stagger everyone just to be like,
yeah,
okay, we've got other people that want to come through,
that's
but I'm
just it,
always
right?
happy to have people back. I love continually hearing people. Or there's some people who I'm like, I want to listen to this every time.
Right. Yeah,
I'm like,
that's the thing.
that's very fun.
There's a few I want to repeat, but I have new stuff too. So I'll sign up in the fall,
Yay.
but yeah, no, I just really want to say thank you, and I think you're absolutely incredible, and I'm so grateful that we've met and connected, and I just really hope you keep doing everything you're doing because I think your work is immensely valuable, and I really I find you to be uh how do I put it? You're a member of a community that I would like to be in.
Oh,
Like the way I see
yes.
you hold yourself in the world and the way I see you put yourself out in the world, um, I don't even know if you recognize necessarily how much power there is within it and how much I like really admire it. So thank you very much for
Oh,
that.
what?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. No, I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. West Coast Mark Maron. No, I shouldn't say West Coast. He's in the West Coast. Canadian Mark
Right,
Maron,
right. Yeah,
younger.
yeah.
Um, no, you're great. I mean, you've gotten Teen Angst Night. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I feel like I should have, you know, caught up on your past history before I was
Oh,
on this podcast.
no.
And be like, oh,
No.
I want to know more about this.
Well, we'll
This is
just we'll
great.
have you back on again. We'll just
There
have
we
you back
go.
on again down the road, and we'll do a catch up, and we'll see where we go from there. Um, Last question of the show. I always like to leave listeners on a bit of an actionable step that they can kind of take with them and try out. So, what do you think is one thing listeners could try doing this week for to basically to be a better friend, either to themselves or to their community?
Oh, my mind goes to like five things at once. Maybe I am like ADHD on the spectrum.
I mean, or you know what?
No, no,
Throw
no.
it all. Give them a top five.
Um, I mean, selfishly, as the party planner, I'm like, reach out to your party planning friends. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get a little burnt out and
Mhm.
bitter. We being I.
Mhm.
We're always the one that know things. We're just be like, is there anything cool you want to do? I want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Right? Like flip the script sometimes in your friendship. Be like, acknowledge that they're the one who does that and doesn't.
Plan the party for the party planner.
Right? Oh my God. I did have friends throw me a party years ago, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" It was beautiful. Um, um, yeah. I mean, I think what you said early on about like that we do need to like friend ourselves first
Mm.
is always great advice, and certainly stuff that I'm always working on. Um, and lastly, make a plan, make a trip with
Mm.
a friend, and have the conversations you need to have in advance. Like I did on my most recent trip with one of my best friends.
Yes, yes. Oh,
Set your expectations early and be honest about what they are, and then you'll have a great trip.
yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. I just one more time, thank you for
Thank
being on the
you.
show. Do you have anything you want to plug? Anywhere you'd like listeners to find you? Anything like that?
Well, I finally started an Instagram account for my shows because it's just too much. It's too much. I'm like, do you really want to see all my dogs and stupid hats? People that want to come to my shows? You probably don't. So that's Yellow Notebook Productions. It's all spelled out because all the other abbreviations of it were taken. Um, yeah, that's probably the best thing. I'm everywhere on the internet. It's too much of me and my dogs and silly hats. I don't know when this is coming out.
Actually, really quick, it's coming out this week.
Great. Okay, Teen
Yeah.
Angst Night is the last one of the season is May the 3rd. Then in September, I don't remember the date, 20 or 22nd, I'm going to do one at the Shadbolt. They have asked me to bring the show there. And then I need to talk to the Fox about when the next season's going to happen at the Fox.
Yeah.
And then I'm doing my other show at the new little mountain gallery in Gastown. It's the show Say What? Readings of Deliciously Rotten Writing. This is the other. I have an idea. Come play a game with me where I find funny people and they have to find a book that makes them say what? And this is ridiculous. The plot doesn't make sense. Check out this crazy dialogue. Like, get a load of this insanity. Yeah. So it's a show that I ran for years pre-pandemic, and many people were like, "I found a book. Like, I found a book. I want to play the game." So I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
we'll do it again." It's very fun.
Amazing. And when is that? When
Oh,
when
yes,
is that happening?
May 29th. It's a Wednesday, and it's our early show, 7 p.m. to 8:15 at Little
Mm.
Mountain, because I respect people with jobs.
Mhm.
None of
Mhm.
these 9:30 p.m. shows. That's not my audience. My
No.
audience likes to go to bed early,
Mhm.
and I love that.
I was just reading a Instagram post that was talking about how their concerts need to have matinees because it's like I don't
Yes.
want to see a band it starts at 9 with two openers,
No,
you know?
no,
Like
it's happening more and more. I just went to Ballet BC to had a dance thing I went to last night where it was 8 to midnight. I was like, yes, I will go dancing 8 to midnight. I
yeah,
will be on the dance
yeah.
floor at 8:05.
Yep, and then I will be at home long before midnight,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
nice that it's an
I'm
option,
gonna leave
you
at
know?
10:30. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's when the birdhouse starts. They
Oh
open at
my
10 p.m.
gosh,
I'm
I
like, get
know.
a life.
Well,
Stop
that's
doing cocaine. You
yeah,
know? Like, good lord.
yeah. I mean, I think it's happening. The culture's shifting.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's it.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. All that is going to be in the show notes. Sarah Bynoe, you are magic. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And that's it for this week. Thank you one more time to Sarah for coming on the show. I just adore the work she's doing. Please check out her profile. I have added that link in the show notes. Go see Teen Angst. Go see Say Wah. Go see everything else she puts on because she's an incredible host and artist. And I just think the absolute world of her. So please support her. Speaking of support, if you want to help out Friendless, why not sign up for the Friendless newsletter? You're getting a weekly update, including 5 distractions for the week, which will range anything from books, movies, music, TV shows, articles. This week, you're getting a link on a study of whether or not you should flush with your toilet lid up or down. You're also getting a curated poem that I have enjoyed this week and a monthly playlist of music that I am using to distract myself from the intrusive thoughts. The Friendless subscription is coming along nicely. We're hoping to launch this in June. I'm still taking feedback for anyone who has any ideas, but it's looking like it's going to be, there's going to be some courses, there's going to be a private Discord, there's going to be weekly live streams, probably a book club, lots of fun stuff coming down the pipeline. I'm really excited to share it. More information is going to be coming out in May, and then we're going to be launching that in June, so get hyped. But that's really it for me this week. I have no other updates that I can think of. I'm sure I will publish the episode and then remember all the stuff I wish I had said. But that doesn't really matter, so we're going to leave it here. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you're going to come back next week for a brand new episode. But I'm not going to worry about that right now, and neither should you, because that is then, and this is now. So for now, I'll just say I love you, and I wish you well. Fun and safety, sweeties.